Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything from the Pistons to the NBA draft and the Motor City Cruise.
And Blake, before we even get going today, I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to you. We're recording here Friday after the Thanksgiving holiday, so hope you had a great day with some friends, family, and happy Thanksgiving.
Likewise, happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's always, there's a lot going on, so you don't notice it too much, but it's always strange when there's those days without NBA basketball. We had another one earlier this month with the election day, but at least the Lions kept us entertained. That was an insane game, but
Yep.
Yeah, overall great Thanksgiving. Spent the time great with family and friends, and hope you did the same.
Yeah, I did. We were back in the Chicago area visiting with family, so a lot of fun there. Last year, though, I remember we talked about, what was the best Thanksgiving food, I think it was. We were trying to pick out our favorite things on the plate. So what I wanted to ask you this year was not what's the best food there, but this year, what was the standout dish? Because there's always one dish that, like, maybe better than expected, or is just routinely the tops, right? So what was that for you this year?
Man, I hope no one in my family watches so I don't offend anyone or anything like that. But I'd say this year it had to be the stuffing. I mean, that's one of my favorites. So it probably a little biased towards it every year, but actually one other I'll say that's a little different, actually a dessert. We had some tiramisu, which normally we don't on Thanksgiving, but that showed up this year and I was pleasantly surprised, and it was great. How about at your Thanksgiving?
I'd have to go. I'm usually a big turkey guy. I still love the turkey this year. It was a star as always, but the mashed sweet potatoes this year.
Oh, nice.
Phenomenal. They're so good. I don't know what it was about the potatoes that was different than usual. I love sweet potatoes, so this wouldn't be too big of a shock. If anyone knows me, I will just microwave a sweet potato and eat it. It's good stuff. But yeah, the little marshmallows on top still kind of had a crispiness to them. Oh, it was fantastic.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we did not have sweet potatoes this year, just regular mashed potatoes, but I do enjoy sweet potatoes as well, so I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, well, one more thing before we get going, because I don't think we've actually talked about this on the podcast yet, Blake, but I wanted to, since we're in the spirit of giving thanks and whatnot, I wanted to say that I am extremely thankful for my co-host, Blake, because I don't know, again, I don't think we've actually talked about this on the podcast before, but a couple years ago now, right? Jack Kelly and I, we were doing DBB Live. We had this all set up to transition it into the Pindown, into the podcast that we're doing right now, you and I. And it was going to be me and him. We were ready to roll. We just about had Sean Corp, the managing editor at DBB, so shout out to him as well. Big thanks to him as always. But we almost had him ready to send out the preview, audio transcript, right, to kind of give the preview for the podcast, maybe generate a little bit of excitement. And all of a sudden, Jack's work basically said, you're not going to be able to do that this year. At the time, he was working with the NBL, and just his schedule wasn't going to work anymore like we thought it was. So I called up Blake on a whim, and in about a week, he and I we talked it through, we got everything lined up, and next thing you know, he's my co-host. So I just want to say thankful for you, one, for taking that leap with someone that you'd maybe talked to once or twice outside of a podcast setting at that point, right? And then two, for not only being a co-host, but being a good friend of mine now after the couple years doing this with you. So I just wanted to give you the shout out there.
Man, that is way too kind of you, but likewise, I can throw it right back at you. I mean, I'm super grateful you thought of me. I think I probably joined in on DBB maybe a few months, probably earlier in the year than when we started. And yeah, we talked maybe a couple times, and I was on DBB Live with you and Jack. So, I mean, I'm super grateful that you asked me to join you on this, and you keep us up and running. So I am super thankful for you and thankful that you asked me to. It's been a blast, and yeah, gained a true friend out of it too, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I needed to make sure today that the people knew that there is no pin down without Blake Silverman. None of this
Oh,
happened without him.
likewise. Come
So,
on.
this has been fantastic. And as sappy as that was, I feel like we needed to say it. This was the second
It's
Thanksgiving episode
Thanksgiving.
we done. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
only the second.
Yeah, I think last year we did a Thanksgiving Eve. So yeah,
Yeah,
this is
yeah, we
this is the
did.
first year where after Thanksgiving we have it around maybe some downtime for ahead of the weekend. So I'm excited, and yeah, a big Pistons NBA Cup game too. So the timing worked out.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that in a second because we were just talking before this episode began. But the clinch scenarios that may or may not be available to the Pistons, we're going to get to that probably as we're closing out the show. Unfortunately, though, we are talking here before that Pacers game. In the grand scheme of things, that's okay. We'll probably tell
Mhm.
you why again maybe in 30 minutes or so. But before we get to any of that, you noticed on the Kia rookie ladder, I believe, that Ron Holland wasn't even in contention for one of the all rookie teams at the end of the year, right? Was that accurate? And then we'll
E-
kind of dive in there.
Yeah, so the NBA releases a rookie ladder. I'm not sure how often, maybe once a week, cuz and it just caught my eye cuz I mean, I've had a great time watching Jared McCain and for the
Mm-hmm.
Sixers amidst all the mess that is going on there. That's a story for another day, but maybe we'll talk about it a little cuz the Pistons play them on Saturday as we're recording. But so the rookie ladder they do like the top five and then the next five. So I guess you could say it's maybe the first and second team. And I don't know if it's super like Ron Holland is being robbed or anything like that. I just thought it was somewhat interesting that he wasn't in the top 10. Just like, do you think he has a case to be? I mean, there's a ton of names, even though this rookie class isn't crazy by any means. There's not that true star like we had last year with Wemby or anything like that. There's some names toward the bottom where I think Ron Holland has a say, like Tristan da Silva in Orlando is 10th. And I haven't watched a ton of the rookies super closely just to know everything, but just watching Ron Holland with the Pistons, I feel like he's showed a little bit more than I thought he would, and knowing that he's played a decent role, like 16 minutes a game through 20 games, and has looked good for the most part. In the minutes and opportunity he's given, I would have thought before the season, like yeah, he'd probably be in contention for maybe second team all rookie. Um, there's something to say about the minutes he's given and also just the scoring and everything. Like he's 16th amongst the rookie class right now in scoring and points per game. He's at 5.9, so that puts him in the top 20, but nothing crazy. He's averaging 5.9 points a game, so I think as we work toward the end of the season, though, if he plays his way into more minutes, and especially if some opportunities open up, if the Pistons make any trades at the deadline, I think he's showed some positive signs so far. So I was just interested where your head was at, and with Ron Holland, maybe as a whole, and also amongst his peers in the rookie class.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. First of all, he's got an argument. The problem for getting top 10 and stuff like that is that it really is just a points per game kind of contest. At the end of the
Hmm.
day, especially for the rookie awards, it really does seem to come down to points per game. Rookie of the year, all rookie first team, even when you get into the rising stars game or whatever they're going to call that this year with the restructured all-star format, all of that just tends to be points per game stuff. So Ron Holland being 16th, not say ninth, probably
Yeah.
going to hold him back. But what I will say is I wouldn't be shocked if he works his way into this,
Hmm.
into that top 10 by the time even we hit the all-star break. He has been noticeably, I think, getting better almost every single game. He had one game last week I forget who it was against, where it looked like he kind of took a step back. But other than that blip, he has been positively progressing, I think, in terms of the shots he's hunting for himself, the reads he's making off the dribble. I've been especially impressed with him in the half court and what he's been able to generate for himself and even for others, just as a guy that can kind of create an initial advantage and play out of that smartly, right? I don't think anyone's going to call him an incredible playmaker or a fantastic passer, but he's a willing passer. And when he makes that advantage, he's pretty quick to kick it out when the opportunity is obvious and there. So I do think he makes those easy reads. I think he's generating opportunities to keep making those easy reads. And, he just keeps flashing more and more stuff every single game, it looks like. I think against the Grizzlies, he had a couple Euro step finishes where it was change of pace Euro steps too, kind of like what Marcus Sasser does, right? Where he's not just going 1,000 miles an hour. He actually hits the brakes on that first step and then goes all the way through to throw off the shot blocker and still has an explosive finish because he's an incredible athlete. I'm just saying, I think Ron Holland is going to continue to get better with the opportunities that he has. He's going to continue growing because he has already. You could see the growth from game 1 to game now, right? Game 21, I think this will be for him. So I think he's going to get there. I don't think he's there yet, but I think he's going to get there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it gets easier if you're talking about if he was in the hunt for rookie of the year. Like more often than not, there'll be one that stands out amongst the rest. I mean, that we can definitely call a debate with that with the Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes year. But overall, I think it gets difficult if you are trying to put together first and second teams because all these rookies are playing such different roles, and Ron is playing a pretty important role for this team. A lot of that was while Ausar Thompson was out, but in the couple games that Ausar has been back, he's still had an opportunity. Yeah, Cade Cunningham is out too, so we haven't seen what his role looks like when the team is fully healthy. But I think he's shown enough to um, at least carve out a role for himself on this team. And it's different when you're talking about carving out a role on a team like what Dalton Connect is doing with the Lakers and the aspirations that they have versus what Ron Holland is doing in Detroit, and also just the market stuff. Like a rookie in Detroit won't get the same amount of love. But I think overall, if you look at some of the names on there, like for instance, Zach Edey is still in the top 10 and he hasn't played since the 17th, I believe. He's out with an injury. And hopefully he comes back, but rookies go up and down all the time. Like injuries are going to happen. And I think as long as Ron Holland's out on the floor playing the way that he does, I think he has a say, even if he's not given the shine in the national awards and make an all rookie team. I think the important thing is that he's made an impact in his first year through the first quarter of his rookie year already. And it seems like he's going to continue that. The shot is definitely a work in progress, but overall through 20 games, I have definitely seen more than what I was expecting out of Ron Holland.
So since you brought up Ausar Thompson, this was actually something I meant to text you about during that
Yeah.
Grizzlies game, but I'm going to ask it to you now. What do you think of the minutes so far that we've seen in these first couple of games back with Holland and Ausar out there on the floor at the same time, generally with Isaiah Stewart? But we also should note against the Grizzlies, we did get a short stint of Ausar Thompson as the center, kind of in that Tobias Harris role that we've seen at the end of quarters and a halves before that JB has gone to. We saw Ausar Thompson take those, and I thought that was really interesting too. But what do you think about that pairing?
Just Bruce, remind me when that stretch of Asar at the 5 happened in the game. Was it when it was already over?
Oh, yeah, it was already over. I think this was late in the third quarter. It was interesting nonetheless, though. I mean, they could have
Right.
gone to Paul Reed, right? And they didn't. So they went to him.
Yeah. Yeah, my only point with that was like I wonder if that's something JB Bickerstaff is going to try out at times when the game is a little bit closer, because I mean we saw one of the two-way guys get minutes, like Marcus Sasser, who's been playing good minutes.
Swider, right?
Yeah, Cole Swider. Sasser got 27 minutes. So just like he's played well enough, just more than usual. But yeah, since Asar's return, I think what we talked about leading up to his return is he's going to be eased in a bit. And I think we've seen that to a degree. I mean, he got 20 minutes against the Grizzlies compared to 16 in his first game back against Toronto. And it was nice to see he made a three against Toronto. He was 1 for 3, and then against Memphis, he just took one. He was 0 for 1 and 1 for 5 from the field. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow burn for Asar coming back, just because of how much time he missed and everything like that. But I think he's looked pretty good at all the comments that and pictures that we've seen of Asar getting bigger in the off season. I think that definitely has carried
Absolutely legit.
carried over. Yeah. And even when he wasn't doing much offensively, scoring wise against the Grizzlies, he had 4 assists, 4 boards, a steal. So I just think that there were so many games before he came back when I was thinking the Pistons could really use an Ausar Thompson right now. So it's nice to have him back overall. I mean, I don't think we've seen anything crazy in the short amount of minutes we've seen from him since he's returned, but overall just happy to see him back, and I'm happy that he looks bigger, looks stronger, and hopefully that'll help him like get to the line more and just be able to grow his game in ways that we're looking for.
That Grizzlies game for Asar was so interesting to me because it seemed like it seemed to do two things at the same time. He showcased a couple of skills that he seems to have already improved on over last season, which is really exciting. And then he also showed a lot of the same limitations that he had
Mhm.
his rookie year too. So one play that really came to mind was he got the ball on a grab and go, takes it off on the fast break, and he's just outrunning everybody with the ball. Really, really impressive. Showed a lot of confidence with the ball in his hands in that transition scenario. Much more confidence than he had last year. I thought the handle looked tighter too. So that's really exciting. He drives to the rim. He gets all the way to the hoop, and he uses his shoulder and his upper body strength to basically just discard a Grizzlies defender. I think it might have been Jay Huff, who's I know he's not like the best defender in the world, but that's a big dude. Okay. So that was really impressive. He gets himself a wide open layup in transition using his strength. Blew the layup.
Mhm.
Blew the layup. He just missed it. So that now there's the finishing coming back up, right? And he did end up getting an offensive rebound. I think the play ended in a Tim Hardaway Jr. three. But that was a nice little microcosm of wow, look at the things that he's improved on. And then oh right, he really needs to improve his touch around the basket. And of course you brought up the shooting as well. But yeah, I thought it was actually a pretty good game out of Asar, using him in that Swiss Army knife role. I really liked actually some of the things that Bickerstaff did to help the spacing when Asar was out there with a guy like Holland or with a guy like Jalen Duren as well. And then, how about that pairing then with Holland too? Have you liked what you've seen out of those two when they've been on the floor together so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna take some time, and I think it'll be a little clunky just because of Holland, or I'm sorry, Asar, and just his limitations as a ball handler trying to improve. But I think I think overall, when you have two athletes like that on the floor, I mean, it can help separate the lineup and just throw almost an off-speed pitch, and just help you getting out and able to run. I think we saw a little bit less of that before Thompson came back. So overall, like I'm just so interested to see where Asar fits into the rotation after like 5 to 10 games played, because I'm interested to see whether he does play with Holland a decent amount, just because of both of their shooting limitations right now. I don't know how ideal it is, and we've seen them play with Isaiah Stewart. That's probably the ideal center, or if JB does decide to throw some lineups out there with Asar at the 5. So overall, I think what we've seen from that pairing is exciting at what they can bring, but also just the limitations and maybe the offensive stalls that it can bring depending on what's going on is something you definitely have to plan for. And if they're playing alongside Cade, like when Cade's back, maybe it's a little bit of a different story. Um, but yeah, kind of like the what we've talked about with the Asar and Duran pairing, I think you have to adjust the other players on the floor around them in such a specific way. And I mean, I would think as a coach, you would probably want to limit the times you have to do that. But overall, at least while Asar's in year two, Holland's in year one, that just might be the case. And hopefully the positives and what they bring defensively and being able to get out and transition can outweigh maybe some of the offensive slowness or lack of opportunities or whatever it might be in that point in time that it also brings.
Yeah, I mean I agree. The limitations are really obvious. Asar, not Asar Thompson. Sorry, apologies, guys. Ron Holland is only shooting 16% from three so far this season. It's been bad. I
I
know it
think you
doesn't look
rounded
as
up
bad.
too,
Yeah, I did. I did round up.
slightly, but
Slightly. It was 15.9, right?
okay, yeah, 16's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, 16's fine. Come on, Blake. No.
So,
So yeah, so I mean it's a roundup, and I know the form doesn't look nearly as bad as Asar Thompson's form. So you look at Ron Holland shoot the ball, and you think, okay, that's a guy that might actually be able to do it in the future. But if we're just talking product on the floor, he's no different than what Asar Thompson was last year as a shooter. That's a guy that's only
mhm.
putting up a couple a game, and he's really not making hardly any of them. It's down in the teens. All right. So what's really interesting to me though is what JB Bickerstaff did against the Grizzlies when Asar and Duran were out on the floor together. He did the same thing when the front court was Holland, Asar, and Stu. So when the game started off, what Bickerstaff ended up doing was what he's done quite a bit in Cleveland. Actually, he lifted both Asar and Duran up to the elbows. Okay, he lifted them up to the elbows, and he did not have either of them kind of space. And they played out of this kind of four high set, which is really intriguing when you have ball handlers out on the wing who can beat a guy one on one and get to the rim like Jaden Ivey can. Less so Malik Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. So with Ivy playing at the one, I think it was less effective than it would have been if Cade were healthy. Because if you stick Ivy out on that wing instead of THJ, you might actually be able to still get to the rim, even if guys are sagging off pretty hard from Duran and from Asar. So I thought that was a pretty fascinating change. But what was really exciting was they still did it with Asar and Stewart, with Holland out there on the wing. And we actually saw Holland get quite a few drives in the half court out of that, because Ron Holland is a guy that can beat the guy in front of him going baseline and try to get a finish. And they also were smart where they stacked Ron Holland over on the side with Isaiah Stewart instead of Asar Thompson. So if you were going to get help coming down off of one of those two bigs, it was coming off of Asar because he can't shoot. But at the same time, it kind of put the Grizzlies in a bind because Asar is a good passer, does have good playmaking vision. So he's not a guy you really love leaving at that elbow either. So I thought it was actually really great creativity out of JB Bickerstaff. I'm intrigued to see more of that kind of four high setup to counteract this spacing problem moving forwards, and especially excited to see it in a lineup maybe of Cade, Ivy, Holland, Asar, and Stewart, because that now you're looking at two guys out on the wing and Ivy and Holland that can beat their guy one on one and get to the rim, and you're looking at two guys there on the elbows who, Stewart maybe isn't the passer, but he can hit an elbow jump shot. And then you definitely would trust Ausar Thompson to get the ball and make a decision out of the elbow in a kind of a slanted court situation. I thought it was a fascinating change, and I'm excited to see more of it.
Yeah, and also I think positive, at least in the short term, what that does is limit, I guess, maybe the trouble Asar Thompson can get
Yeah,
himself into. Like,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
dribbling it. But I guess the funny thing is the three that Thompson made, he was out in the corner and just not getting any attention, and it was off a Jaden Ivey drive. And I feel like that's not where you're gonna see the majority of Asar Thompson's opportunities. And also another, I guess, sign for hope, I guess I should say, is Asar's. He hasn't been very efficient in the mid range or even near the basket. He hasn't had a ton of opportunities in the two games that we've seen from him so far. But I think in his rookie year, I saw that. I mean, it's not hard to be better shooting than he was 3 point wise, but he can definitely hit some of those short turnaround jumpers, maybe even get into his mid range game a little bit. And we haven't seen that yet. So if JB continues to use them in that way, that should help open up some additional scoring opportunities around or at least near the basket. And also maybe limit some turnovers, because if you get 3, 4 turnovers from a guy like Asar Thompson, that everything else starts to add up really quickly. So hopefully, how he's used will help limit that as well.
Yeah, and like you said, right, this is JB kind of flexing on all of us a little bit with his basketball strategy. Even if Tobias Harris were healthy, I would bet that Asar Thompson, if he had started that game, still would have been technically the four operating out of that elbow because of exactly what you just said. Asar Thompson's not the guy you want out on the right wing to try and beat his guy one on one with both bigs lifted up so there's a little bit less help at the rim. That's not Asar's game right now. It wasn't last year. We've got no reason to believe it now newly is. So it's putting Asar in a position to succeed, even in a lineup where you look at it and like I saw the starting lineup, I went, ah, crap. Spacing's going to be a huge issue tonight. Ivy's not the shooter that maybe he could be or should be. You've got two great shooters in THJ and Beasley, but man, that's not going to be enough. And then JV threw this one out there, and it wasn't great, but they did jump out to a nice little lead there. So I was really impressed. And then they kept doing it all game. I seriously, I really hope that we just keep seeing it. I think that would be especially good against the Bucks with as much drop coverage as they play.
Mhm.
If you just lift Brook Lopez up like that and start playing high on everything, puts him in a bind. I'm excited. I want to see more of it. Preferably still not with Asar and Duran, but Asar and Stewart doing that. I think there could be a lot there that could be really fun. This is that creativity stuff we talked about, right? All the fun things you could do with Asar. This is one of them. I was excited.
Yeah, well, hey, it's a good sign when all the times we've talked about not wanting to see Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren on the floor together. When we saw it, it was basically out of necessity when you're missing both Cade and Tobias Harris. So we'll see. Like, I still doubt that they'd start next to each other when
Mm-hmm.
you are more healthy. I think if we see them, it might just be in short spurts, but I think at least JB doesn't want to play that way. So I hope that continues when both Cade and Tobias are on the court as well. Because, yeah, it's funny, even as you have two good to great shooters in Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr., it's not enough, like you mentioned.
I think I jumped the gun a little bit. We got this question here from Rames. He says, now that we've gotten a glimpse, how can JB arrange lineup rotations and play actions so that Asar, Ron, and Stewart can be out on the court at the same time? You got any other ideas, Blake? I guess I've already kind of talked about mine.
I mean, other than that, like, I think how you outline what they've been doing is perfect, but I think where we've seen success from Asar in the short time since he's returned, and also as a rookie, like, he's a really good cutter too. I thought he made some solid cuts in his couple games back. So I think just having him move around, and you can keep Ron Holland out on the perimeter as like your slasher guy trying to get to the rim. And I don't know, like, I know JB hasn't wanted to play with Stu working around the perimeter as much, but like maybe when you have Asar out there, if you're putting him in the dunker spot or at the elbow, like Wes outlined, maybe that opens up some more Stu being able to step out and create some more 3-point opportunities for himself. Um, the other thing, and it's not really related to Rames's question, but I think it's interesting that when in a SARS return game, I believe Simone Fontecchio only got like 8 or 9 minutes. And that was one of the names that we talked about might see their minutes come down. I think Ron Holland maybe will get a few less minutes if the team is fully healthy with Ausar Thompson back. And I know you mentioned like Tobias Harris is playing huge minutes. He played 37, almost 38 minutes in the Toronto game, but when Cade's back, when everyone's healthy, like maybe we see that come down to 33, 34. So I think how the rotations work when Asar is back will be interesting to see whose role goes down a little bit. But what we saw against Toronto and how the season has went so far, I thought Simone Fontecchio might be the one who sees their minutes go down the most, and that's what we saw against Toronto when Tobias was out there and Asar, Simone, and Ron were all available as well.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd really add in terms of maybe like play actions or like different things that they could get into offensively that would make it work. How about some Spain pick and rolls with Asar setting the first pick and roll screen, and then Stewart coming over and getting his guy for a roll that way, right? I think that could be interesting. Isaiah Stewart I think he leads the team actually in screen assists, which if you told me that before the season started, I would have been shocked. Jalen Duren had historically been a better screen setter than Isaiah Stewart. And Stewart's really excelling in that role right now. So maybe he can find a way to get in the way of Asar's man and clear up that short roll or hard roll all the way to the rim for him in that Spain action. I think that could be a lot of fun. Other than that, I just think in general, I can't find another word other than encouraging to describe what's been happening since Asar came back, with essentially how JB Bickerstaff has set up everything, right? He clearly, like you mentioned, it was Simone Fontecchio's minutes that went down. It wasn't Ron Holland's minutes. So that tells us two things. That tells us, one, that JB Bickerstaff still really values Ron Holland's development, which you and I both agree he should, right? He should
Mm-hmm.
continue to get Ron Holland minutes, even if it's a little bit reduced as compared to what it was before. But it also tells us that he sees Ausar Thompson as generally a 4, not a 3. We didn't see Ron Holland's minutes tick down. We didn't see Tim Hardaway Jr. or Malik Beasley's minutes tick down. We saw Simone Fontecchio's minutes tick down, and he's the guy who's been the primary backup for Tobias Harris when he's healthy this season, right? So he's your backup 4. Now Ausar Thompson seems to be the backup 4. So I think that's pretty exciting. I like that. That's how I view Ausar Thompson as well. And then the second thing is that he's clearly very aware that shooting, that spacing problem is a big issue that he needs to scheme up ways to solve out on the court. It's not just something that like essentially what Monty Williams did last year, right? It was, okay, we've got athletes, we've got guys who can dribble the ball. I know they're young, but let's throw them out there and they're going to figure it out. They're going to learn together, they're going to grow from it, and eventually they're going to figure it out. Well, they never did. They never figured it out, probably because they're so dang young. And so JB Bickerstaff seems to be looking at it as saying, okay, it's a huge issue that Ausar Thompson really can't shoot at all. And he's not a guy that you could put in a phone booth and have him get something out of it with his ball handling ability. Those are two limitations you have on Ausar Thompson in the half court. So because of that, let's scheme up some ways to maybe lift those defenders up a little bit and away from the hoop so that our finishers can still get to the rim and still make some plays. Let's get them in motion. Let's try to have them grab and go more often in transition so that defenses can adjust to it, right? We're seeing creative uses for Ausar Thompson in just 2 games and in pretty limited minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But we're seeing creative uses for Ausar Thompson that, to me at least, very clearly indicate JB Bickerstaff watched last year's tape and went, I got to figure something else out. So that's extremely encouraging, I think.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'd add, like schematically, and this is this is very for a specific situation, but we've seen the ATO play that JB likes when at the end of games where you draw up for a player to set a screen and then get towards the hoop. The one against Miami for Duran, and then the one that was drawn up for Ron Holland. So I think having a SAR back, like he's someone if you're down one or two, like you don't think you probably might not even want Ausar Thompson on the floor, but if he is out there, JB can draw up that play for him to cut towards the rim, and I mean I trust his athletic ability to get up there and make something happen. So I mean, now that the Pistons have run that play multiple times, like teams are going to know to expect that. But I think adding Asar Thompson to the mix maybe will throw things off. And if you are in a situation at the end of a quarter, end of a half, end of a game, like when you don't really think the ball is going toward Asar Thompson, like that creates a slight advantage for JB opportunity. And to go back to that play that he definitely seems to like quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree, but I think all of this just kind of speaks to where at least you and I agree that Asar Thompson's strengths are, and that's pretty much just as a direct play finisher, right? If you want to throw him an oop
Mhm.
or you want to get him out in the dunker spot and have him finish from there, or maybe a 1 to 2 dribble max kind of guy in the half court to make a play and get all the way to the hoop, or as a connector, right? As a guy where you get him the ball and he's the one that immediately gets the ball to someone else to make a play in an advantageous situation. So, not a playmaker, not a guy like Cade that's creating these advantages and then putting the ball in someone's hand, but a guy where someone else creates the advantage and then Asar smartly makes the connective pass and the connective read to make it an extreme advantage, to make it really beneficial for the offensive player that's getting the ball to then finish it, right? And if you think back, that was kind of the scouting report on Asar Thompson coming out of OTE. It was kind of
Mhm.
that Andre Iguodala type guy where he's an incredible athlete, he's a good finisher, but he'll make plays in transition. He can make smart passes for others, and it's just I don't know. It's just exciting to actually we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And then now we're seeing Bickerstaff put him in positions to do it. And it's only been 2 games. It's only been 2 games. So, yeah, like I said, extremely encouraged, right? I don't know any other way to put that. We do have another Bickerstaff question. So I'll give you a chance to add on or respond, and then we'll go to that voicemail.
No, just quickly. Asar is just such a fun piece to have. I'm happy he's back, and we haven't even seen him
Unique, right?
play with Cade Cunningham because he's been out since I know Asar was available, and then he didn't play for a game. So I'm excited to see how Asar is used, how he looks when if and when he's playing next to Cade. I'm sure it will happen at least in spurts. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
All right, so we have a voicemail question here. This is from our guy, a fella, in the DBB comments asking about thoughts on JB Bickerstaff.
Hey, this is a fella from the DVB Comments. Just wanted to give you a call. First and foremost, always love the content. Appreciate you guys even answering my question. Too great. Love it. Secondly, I just wanted to see what you all thought about JB Bickerstaff as a coach so far. Defensively, offensively, do you feel he's been able to make adjustments, bringing out the best in players, and when that hasn't worked, changing it up? What do you think? Just wanted to see. All right, y'all enjoy the rest of your time.
All right, Blake. So, what do you think about JB Bickerstaff as a coach so far this year? What have you liked, not liked, and just general thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think mostly what I have to say is positive, and it's almost like I wonder if it's because of how last season went that just these what JB Bickerstaff has done just in terms of winning, being able to win games, and also just the adjustments, how he's finagled the lineups and everything like that. I think what we've been like, my concern was always when we're talking in the summer about how we don't want to see Ausar Thompson and Jalen Duren play next to each other and things like that. It can be totally different from what a coach sees, but I think like what Wes mentioned about we can tell that JB reviewed the tape from last year. I feel like that totally shines through in games and how he's using these young players and trying to put them in the best situation possible. I mean, I think the shining star of that is Jaden Ivey and what he's been able to do. And he's had some really great games and then some off nights, but he hasn't got into a huge rut or anything like that. And I think overall, he's given players the opportunity to make things happen, especially if you look at a guy like Ron Holland as well, with the role that he's been given. I didn't know what his role was going to be when the Pistons drafted him. I mean, when they drafted him, we didn't even know who the coach was going to be, but I'm happy to see that his development is being prioritized. Now that Ausar is back, we've seen him get the opportunity, not getting a ton, or maybe the minutes he would if he was fully ramped up and back to speed. But I think it's clear that whatever individual player you look at or the lineups, I think JB is doing it with a sense of intentionality. And I don't think we could have said the same last year. I mean, I'm really not trying to make this a slight about Monty Williams in any way, but after the season that the team had last year, I think just how everything has been ran. And a lot of that is definitely based on the players too. And it seems like there's a new sense of energy. Some of the new guys you brought in, like Malik Beasley, have been huge for the locker room, I'm sure. And not just him, but I think overall, one of the biggest things I can say about JB Bickerstaff is about all the all bench lineups that Monty Williams used that like drove us crazy. A stat that I believe Bally Sports or FanDuel Sports, whatever it's called now, mentioned was that when Cade and Ivy are both playing, like one of them has been on the court 98 to 99% of the time. And we just didn't have that last year. And that was a big talking point about it too. Like we always thought that one of them should be out there. So I think he's done a good job in terms of just letting these players do what's best for them. And everything Wes said too, out of the two games that we've seen from Ausar Thompson and how he was used, it seems like he's being used playing to his strengths a bit. So I think that's really all you can ask for with such a young team. And also everything like how where they stand like defensively has surprised me a bit. And I think that the coach sets a lot of those expectations too. So have to give him a ton of credit. It's not an easy job, but I think he's done a great job through what we've seen so far.
Yeah, the defensive improvement I think falls almost entirely on him, on JB Bickerstaff. That is, like you look up and down this roster, there are still only 2+ defenders. 2. One of them had been injured up until 2 games ago. Like it is unreal that they are a top 15 defense, or well, they were before that Memphis game. I don't know where they're falling right now.
They're still, sorry, I just had it filtered. They're 13th right now.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, so they're still top 15. I mean, it is ridiculous if you look at this roster that they are a top 15 defense. So all of that credit I think has to go to JB Bickerstaff. And honestly, what's so fascinating to me, and thinking back on last year, right? What's going to make last year's performance of Monty Williams such an interesting case study, maybe 5 years from now when all the emotion kind of drains away from it, is this isn't going to be popular, but most of the things that Monty Williams did outside of the Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey thing, most of them you could justify. Like in a vacuum, if you looked at the rotation decision that was made in that moment, you could justify it. There was a reason. It made sense. It may have taken a minute. You may have had to think it through, but it made sense. So he was doing a lot of the kind of the galaxy brain stuff. He was doing a lot of the high level smart quote unquote things. A lot of his sideline out of bounds or his baseline out of bounds plays as well were actually really good. I really liked a lot of those actions. So like Monty Williams was doing the quote unquote smart stuff. He was not doing any of the obvious stuff though. He wasn't doing the obvious thing, like you said, right? With Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham having one of them out on the floor almost 100% of the game. He wasn't doing the obvious thing of trying to avoid putting two non-shooters out on the floor at the same time. That's the obvious stuff. That's the stuff that all of us at home that are not incredible basketball minds can sit back and look at it and go, something's off there. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But he was doing the smart stuff. He was doing the complex blob plays and slob plays. He was doing all of that. And actually a lot of really good half court actions too to try and generate a good look with two non-shooters out there on the court. But at the same time, why are they out there on the court? The point is, JB Bickerstaff is doing both. He's doing the smart stuff. He's had a lot of really great plays on slobs or on blobs. He's had a lot of really great schematic changes, like we were talking about earlier in the show, with lifting both of your power players, your center and your forward, lifting both of those guys up to the elbows and kind of running a 4-high offense to counteract some of the spacing concerns that Ausar Thompson brings. Whether or not he's on the court with another non-shooter didn't matter. That was an offense they went to almost the entire game against Memphis, and that was fantastic, right? That's an adjustment. That's a really smart adjustment. So he's doing the smart things, and he's doing the obvious things. He's avoiding minutes with two terrible shooters out on the court at the same time. He's prioritizing guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley for spacing purposes. He's having Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham basically play the entire game for, I think it was 97%, you said, right? That was flashed up on the broadcast.
It's something
like that.
Basically, yeah. They're out there the whole time.
Yeah.
Or one of them is out there the whole time.
So he's doing the obvious stuff, and it's just so nice. It's so nice to have a coach doing both, and it especially stands out when you really had a guy only doing one half of that equation before. And that's not even mentioning, the playing with effort and energy thing, which clearly has improved this year. The players like Bickerstaff, they're playing for the coach, and I think that's obvious on the defensive end, and that's refreshing to see too. So, yeah, I've been extremely, extremely impressed with JB Bickerstaff. And the last thing I'll say, I know I've kind of been obsessing on it, but that 4-high offense that they've been running, he ran that pretty frequently with the Cavs when they were playing their 2 7-footers. And you'll note that Isaiah Stewart and Ausar Thompson are not even 6'10", right? So it's not a 1-to-1 comparison what he did in the Pistons scenario to what he did with the Cavs, but he still thought that, hey, it might work, and he threw it out there. And that's creativity. I've loved what I've seen from JB Bickerstaff.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that we can take from JB Bickerstaff is and not just what he's done in the 20 games so far as the Pistons coach. You can go back to when he was with Cleveland with the two bigs, and I'm sure it was the same in Memphis. I mean, have to go back and look at what some of his teams were like there, but he works with his roster. Like, he is not dead set on a specific approach. He definitely has his things that he wants to do, but he is going to be able to and willing to tweak things based on the players he has available in that given night, and just in general what his roster looks like. He did it with Cleveland when he had Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, and do you want to play two bigs at the same time like that? Probably not. He said he didn't, but when there are two players that are 100% like should be starting for you, he's going to do it and figure out a way to make it work. I think we've seen it so far, like how he's used Ausar Thompson in the couple games that we've seen from him. And then just in general, in terms of knowing where the Pistons lack before he got here. And obviously he had a better roster to work with, but the roster, it's not perfect by any means. There's like a ton of work to do. And with some of the young players that he has, you have to be able to tweak things to get those guys in the right spots and help them build some confidence. And I think he's done that. And just the fact that he's done it, however long we've seen him as an NBA head coach, like there's no reason to think he'll just stop that for in any time soon.
Absolutely. And food for thought for all of our listeners, and I guess you too, Blake, if you want to think about things over the next week. Can Ausar Thompson play a similar role as Evan Mobley on both ends of the floor? I don't know, but I feel like we're going to find out, and I'm intrigued by that. Let's wrap this up here, though, okay, Blake, because we actually have the Pistons playing meaningful basketball
Hey,
in
every
November.
game feels meaningful right now. I mean, when
I
Cadence
know, yeah.
vibes were out against Memphis and that game went back, like at least it feels like every game is meaningful. But yes, the NBA Cup is super meaningful. So
Agreed. Yeah. By this point last year, they still only had 2 wins. So much
they
better.
were definitely
Much
in the
better.
midst of the
Yeah,
losing
they
streak
were.
already.
They were. Yeah. So much better, of course, compared to last season. But real meaningful basketball. They're 2-0
Mm-hmm.
in cup games. They're playing the Pacers this evening. As of right now, we're recording here at 5:30 before on Friday. So we're actually recording before the Pacers game. But let's talk a little bit about those clinch scenarios because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the grand scheme of things, this Pacers game kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's the picture I've picked up, and I'm going based off of like the NBA's PR account tweeted out some clinching scenarios for Friday night, and it was all for East Group C, which is like the Celtics, the Hawks, not the Pistons group. They're in Group B. Because how their group stands right now, the Bucks are 3-0, the Pistons are 2-0. So I think the Pacers can they might technically already be eliminated, but the Pistons can't clinch their group by beating the Pacers. Essentially, it's going to come down to their last game in group play against the Bucks. The Bucks are out to a big lead in point differential, but based on the NBA site, the first tiebreaker is head to head. So it just seems even if the Pistons lose and then they end up beating the Bucks and both are 3-1, the Pistons would move on. And if the Pistons beat the Pacers and the Bucks, they'd be 4-0 and go on outright. But essentially, it seems like it's going to come down to that final game against the Bucks. There's one wild card spot per conference, but the Pistons have a point differential of +6, and it seems like there's probably going to be one second place team that is out ahead of them. So their best path is pretty much the winner take all game against the Bucks. Not to say the game against the Pacers doesn't matter because I mean it counts toward your record too, and you want to win the group outright as well. But yeah, it would almost be fun if they were playing the Bucks tonight and this was just the winner go home game, but we might get that in their final game anyway. So it's exciting though. The cup is felt different after the Pistons didn't win a game last year. They go out and win their first two, so it's super exciting.
And how cool is this? One, as fans, right? I know it's the NBA Cup, and there seems to be varied opinions on whether it's a good or bad product. But whatever the case, whichever side you land on with that, how cool is it that we're actually sitting here and we can seriously discuss tournament clinching scenarios for the Detroit Pistons. How cool is that? And then on top of that, as like from the players' perspective too, again, it's not the playoffs, but there's a trophy on the line here, right? There's a little bit of pride and respect. It's a full NBA tournament. How cool would it be for them that now they're playing in this kind of pressure game against the Pacers, in a winner go home game against the Bucks? Already, that game will be in early December. In early December, this young team is going to play basically a winner go home game. How cool is that? That is incredible.
Yeah, the best part about this tournament to me is it gives some of these young teams that opportunity to go and win something. Like a lot of them
On
aren't
a big
serious.
stage.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of these groups aren't seriously gonna contend for an NBA title, but uh finding a way in 4 games in group play and then going to the knockout round is a lot easier than the full 82 games and then into the playoffs. And I mean, hey, we saw what the Pacers did last year when they did well in the cup. They go to the championship and then they make a run in the playoffs too, and they overperformed. And not saying by any means that the Pistons are on a similar schedule this year, but just the fact that, like you mentioned, they can go and play some meaningful games. And hey, it has to be fun for the team to make it to Vegas and everything. One, I'm sure it's just a good time in general, but two, just being able to go out there and win a game, and then you advance to this knockout stage against probably some of the, depending on how it shakes out, some, you'll get to play some super competitive playoff like games. And even these group games have kind of felt like a playoff type atmosphere. So it's exciting. I think what the Pistons can do, I mean, it's such a positive for them. I hope they find a way to make it out of the group game, because even if they go and get knocked out the first game in the knockout round, like, finding a way to make it out of your group, I feel like is so huge for a young team, especially one that is on the Pistons timeline, where you're probably not at the stage where you're ready to make the next jump and make a playoff run yet, but you can do it on this little smaller Titan schedule and everything, and then go and really build something from there.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it's kind of a like an early taste, right, for these players, these really young players, of
Hmm.
not quite playoff basketball. You know, thinking back to what this NBA tournament or the NBA Cup was last year, the games were really competitive, but it wasn't that playoff kind of atmosphere at the neutral
People didn't
site,
really
right?
know what was going
Yeah,
on.
exactly. And it was the
They
first
probably
year
still
of
don't,
it.
but
Yeah, also true. But like the players still played very hard. Were all
mhm.
still very incredibly very hard fought basketball games last season. I would anticipate that it's the same this year. So, regardless of the result of that Bucks game, this Pistons team that's really young, and if they make the play in, they've kind of outkicked their coverage this year. I think we could all admit that, as exciting as it would be, it'd be a little bit of a
Mhm.
surprise. So this Pistons team is going to have a chance and have an opportunity to play late season basketball. The comparable in my head is kind of playoff clinching basketball, right? Where you're
Mhm.
getting into those final months of the year, and now I'm fighting for seeding. So all these games are really important, and they're really hard fought, and teams want to pass me. Even the bad teams want to knock me out. And so I've got all this pressure on me. And I think that is the Bucks game. I think that is the NBA Cup games if the Pistons end up beating the Bucks and go in and advance out of their group. And there's no telling how valuable that could be for Cade Cunningham, for Jaden Ivey, Ausar Thompson, all of these young guys, right? There's no telling how important that could be long term to get that experience now, a full year before any of us would reasonably expect them to be in that position come March.
Right. And it also, just the other thing is, it doesn't matter as much for the team specifically, but just getting, like, we saw what this NBA Cup did for, I guess it was called the in-season tournament last year, for the Pacers, and getting that
It will
love.
always be the in season tournament in my heart, Blake.
Yeah, you still have to call it that. But getting that love on a national stage, I mean, I think the Pistons have a little bit to a smaller degree already this year based on what they've done and what Cade Cunningham has done. But man, if you make it to those knockout games, you're playing yourself into nationally televised games that the Pistons aren't getting yet, and can really just, I guess, change the narrative on you, which isn't important for your job day in and day out. But hey, it helps Cade Cunningham in the eyes of all-star voters and everything like that. So I just think it can only bring positives for this team, and I'm really hoping for them in general that they find a way to get out of the group.
That's a great point because my preseason prediction was that Cade Cunningham would make the All-Star game this year. So I need them to win so he can get up on the national
I
stage,
think
and
he
I can be
might still
right.
have a say though. Like even
I
if
do
they
too.
don't,
He's been great. He's been great.
yeah, the Pistons have to keep like winning to a degree, but I think he has a say still.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Again, Blake, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I know I texted you that already, but never hurts. Give them all a hello for me again, and take it away.
Oh man, likewise. Happy Thanksgiving to you, your family, everyone tuning in with us and listening. Shout out to a fella again for using the voice line, asking a question. Really appreciate you and all the support. Reminder to everyone that's listening, you can call that number to ask a question and hear your voice on the show. The phone number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Korb, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you.